Hi class, today we're going to focus on color theory and watercolor. So by the end of the day you'll have what looks like this. We'll do a color wheel. We will study up on color schemes. We will do some color mixing, making tints and tones and shades. And then we're going to do some little thumbnail sketch color studies based on different color schemes. And you're going to pick your favorite and you're going to make a bigger one using whatever color scheme you chose. So you're gonna need an object. I chose an apple because it's got a lot of nice colors on it and it's fun to paint, but a very simple shape. But you can do whatever object you want. I suggest you choose something that is colorful. But even things that are not that colorful still have color in them. Like for instance, this box, you might think, oh, it's just brown, but actually it has some reds, it has some purples and some greens, depending on how the light's reflected on it. All right, let's get started. First of all, divide up your paper like this. This will be for your color wheel. Then here we're gonna do our color schemes. Divide it into quarters. We're gonna do 4 different kinds of color schemes. Okay, and then over here, divide it kind of like this. So we'll do our color mixing here, and then here we'll do our thumbnail sketches. So, be mixing, color wheel, schemes, and thumbnail color studies. All right, so for the mixing, do 4 categories. Okay, this is going to be tints, shades, tones, and desaturated with complement. Okay, so first we're going to start with the color wheel. I'm going to draw a circle. And divide it into 12 sections. Okay, first we'll start with the primary colors. The primary colors can be used to mix all the other colors. So we're going to start with red, blue, and yellow. And now blue. So skip 3. And then yellow. Okay, so these are your primary colors. Now we're going to mix them together to make your secondary colors. So red and blue mixed together make violet. And you can mix in your tray. So your tray is a little different than mine, but you have a little space for mixing. Now we're going to mix yellow and blue together, and that gets green. Now you can actually mix yellow and blue if you want to get your green color. or you can use the green that's already available. That's fine too. Okay, and then red and yellow make orange, and again, I'm just going to use a pre-mixed one, or you can mix red and yellow yourself. Okay, so those are your secondary colors. Secondary color means two primary colors mixed together to make a secondary color. Now we're going to make tertiary colors. Tertiary colors are when you mix one primary and one secondary. So we're going to mix red and orange to make red orange. Okay, and now we're going to mix orange and yellow to make yellow orange. Okay, we'll mix green and yellow to make yellow green. Okay, we'll mix green and blue to make blue-green. Then we'll mix blue and violet to make blue-violet. Then we have to mix red and violet to make red-violet. So these are tertiary colors. All right, so now let's move on to color schemes. So in art, you don't want to necessarily use every single color of the rainbow in every single painting, right? You want it to feel unified and limited to only some of the colors. This is called a color scheme. So there are different kinds of color schemes. There's monochromatic, there's complementary, analogous, and triad. For all of these, we're going to use the color wheel. So monochromatic means one color. Chromo means color, mono means one. So for monochromatic, we pick one color, and the whole color scheme should be based on that color. So for instance, if I did blue, you could also add in some white, you could also just really water down the blue. You could add some black. Basically, you could do a whole bunch of different kinds of blues in the painting. The whole painting would be blue, but it wouldn't be just one kind of blue. It would be light, dark, and all other kinds of blues. So I'll do another one. Let's do a green one. So now you make two different kinds of monochromatic schemes. All right, now we'll do complementary. So complementary colors are ones across the color wheel from each other. So yellow and purple, those are complementary colors. That's complementary colors. Another one would be red and green. And the last one, the main one, is blue and orange. But now there's other ones too, for instance, yellow, orange, and blue, violet. Or blue, green, and red, orange. We'll do one last set, yellow, green, and red, violet. Okay, so go ahead and make a bunch of different sets of complementary colors. All right, now we'll talk about analogous. Analogous are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So for instance, you could do like blues and greens. And then you can even add a little bit of white into that. Black. So this would be an analogous color scheme because they're all close to each other on the color wheel. Let's do one more. This time let's do it with reds and oranges. Okay, so these are analogous color schemes. All right, let's do one last type of color scheme, and that's a triad. Triad is 3. So the most famous one would be red, blue, and yellow, the primary colors. So it's any 3 colors that are spaced equally on the color wheel. Okay, so let's do the secondary colors, orange, purple, and green. Oh, another one could be, let's do yellow, orange. Okay, so then we skip 3. 1, 2, 3. So then it's going to be red, violet. Another 3. 1, 2, 3. It's going to be green, blue. Okay, one more. We'll do red, orange. Blue, violet. And then skip. Yellow, green. Okay, now it's your turn. Make some triad color schemes. All right, now we're gonna pick one color and learn about color mixing. So I'm gonna pick blue. Blue is a hue, orange is a hue, red is a hue. A color always has a hue, and that refers to if it's yellow, orange, or blue. Now, it also has a value, just depending on how dark or how light it is, that we know already. Now we're gonna talk about tints. Tints is where you add white to a color. So right now we're just making different tints of blue. Okay, so those are all different kind of tints with blue. Now a shade is when you add black to a color. These are all different shades of blue. Okay. Now tone is when you add gray. So essentially black and white. Okay, so now we have blue. So these are all different tones. And then we're going to desaturate with the complement. So saturated means it's bright. It means it's like the pure color. Make it even more. All of these colors are saturated. Everything here is saturated. So all of these are desaturated because by making them darker or lighter or grayer, we take away their brightness. The same thing can be done with the complement. So remember, the complementary color is the color across the color wheel. So blue is across the color wheel from orange. So if you add blue and orange together, you get kind of like a brown color. Anytime you add two complements, you get kind of like a brown. And it's really useful for doing shadows, or if you just want the color not to be so bright. like even this color, it still looks pretty blue, right? But it's not as bright as this one. Sometimes you just want a color that's not so bright. Add the complement. Like that. Okay, so now we're gonna do some little thumbnail watercolor studies of your object. I'm gonna make 4 boxes for our thumbnails. Okay, I'm gonna call this a monochromatic. Complementary. Analogous. And triad. So I'm gonna take my apple and I'm gonna, first of all, I'm gonna draw it, you know, different compositions. Okay, so we'll start first with monochromatic. So we're gonna stick with just red, but we are allowed to use tints, shades, tones, and desaturated complements with the red. So take the red, we're gonna take just a little bit of pure red, but we can also mix some with white, we can mix some with black, with gray, and the complement of red is green, so you can add a little bit of green in to get in your shadows too. Now we can do a gradient where you just take some water and let it blend out. And do wet on wet, right? So we're gonna make a little tint of red. Add it in. For the shadow, we're gonna add a little bit of green to the red. See, that makes a good shadow color, right? Okay, now we'll do complementary. So now we can use red and green. Analogous, we'll do reds and oranges. I'll do a triad. So for that one, I'll try this triad here. And I'm gonna do something a little different this time. I'm gonna put in just a bunch of, I'm gonna wet my apple so I can do all wet on wet. So it's like that. this one is dry up in here. So that's complementary. I'm gonna add a bit of a tint. It's a good idea to mix up your brushes so you don't always use the same brush, right? Let's say we'll do this triad, and we'll do a big version. Let's do some wet on wet to start. Getting the whole apple wet. Okay, so we're using red, orange, blue, violet, and yellow, green. So I'll start with red, orange.